On October the 27th I started a new game project, which means I am now officially more than a month into this project. So just for fun I would like to talk a bit about the process. Initially it started out as a 3D environment test. I took my road model I made for a kart racing game and modified it into an island. I experimented with various art styles I could use. I found that using simple textures and a couple normal maps worked quite well. I wasn't happy with the hard edges when two textures were right next to each other. It was not something I knew how to easily fix without remaking the island model. Even if I remade the model, I would still come into the same problems in later models. So instead I spent some time looking into possible shaders that would blend the textures together. Shaders are something I don't usually use in my projects, so this was not very easy for me, but I eventually made it work. While it's not perfect, for now it does what I needed to do. I got some feedback that the clouds didn't look nice, so I changed my approach with the skybox, and now that the visuals were starting to lean a bit more to semi-realism, I also changed the water shader to look a bit more realistic. While I was working on the visuals, I made some platforms and some other features to interact with. At this point I was certain I could make a 3D platformer with this. However, I knew I wouldn't be using the character model from my kart game, so I took a base model I made for a different project, which I never got the time to work on, to see if the proportions would work nicely. I updated the model to look more like an actual character. I already knew I would make the game about going through various islands, so I felt a bit of a pirate aesthetic would work perfectly. I figured I could use an old drawing I made in 2018 as a reference. It's always nice to take old ideas and reimagining them into something new. While I am not certain if her proportions work right for a platforming game, at this point I like her too much to not use. The only last thing I want to do before making my first level was making more types of platforms. So I made the necessary moving platforms, rotating platforms, and balls. Once again I challenged the shaders so I could make invisible platforms. In every game project I make I learn some new skills. This one teaches me how to do shaders. Now it was time for me to work on levels. I knew I didn't want to do the same as the test islands, since trying to make it into a platform level didn't work for me at all. Instead I made this level with simple shapes and a clear center goal for the player to go to. Here when you enter the level the focus is the giant cylinder in the middle. As you go through the level you get closer to the cake and eventually get onto the top, where the main collectible resides. Honestly, the hardest part for me were the visuals. I wanted it to be delicious cake on a sea of caramel. My last problem was that I found the sky too empty and boring looking. So once again, my arch nemesis, shaders, returned. For the clouds I made a simple shader with noise textures. I added some simple mountains in the background as well. And the last thing I did was making the game open world. Now you can travel from the old island to the cake islands, and the sky's color will change accordingly. From this point on it will probably be mainly working on more levels and extra features. I will have to think of some calling systems as well, not to mention menus. Right now it's in Godot 3.5, maybe I'll be updating it for Godot 4 down the line. You know, while working on the project I felt like everything went very slowly. Sometimes just to get a simple feature to work I spent days. The cake level alone took me nearly 2 weeks, most of which was working on the visual appearance. but looking back at it, I realized I did quite a lot in just a month. Sometimes it feels like how much you keep walking, you are still where you started. But only when you look back will you realize you have already walked 100 miles. Game development is quite difficult at times. Nobody but yourself will ever know how much work you put into your projects. But if you have a vision and some dedication, you can make some really awesome stuff. I hope you enjoyed my little recap. This was Super Doom King. Thanks for watching. Bye.